The name Corrino is synonymous with power. This noble house rules mankind from atop the Lion Throne and has dominated imperial politics for over 10,000 years. The veins of successive generations of Padishah Emperors course with blood royal, their roots extending to the earliest days of ancient myth. But what is the tale of House Corrino's ascension? How has one family ruled over such a breadth of territory and depth of time? And what leads to their ultimate demise? Like Dune's Imperium, our own world is vast and dangerous. Thinking machines hijack reality, shadow factions steal information, our peace of mind is taken from us. But luckily, we can get it back with the help of this video's sponsor, NordVPN, virtual private network service whose mission is to make the internet a better and safer place than it is today. Their network encryption ensures you have a secure and private connection. NordVPN works harder than the Butlerians to keep the thinking machines of malware and trackers clear from all your devices. And like a Bene Gesserit truthsayer, NordVPN's threat protection and link checker scans suspicious links or downloads to protect against fake scams or harmful malware. If you want safety and security on the internet, look no further than NordVPN. Click on my link down below, nordvpn.com/Lorebrarians, to claim an exclusive deal, plus 4 extra months with a worry-free 30-day money-back guarantee if you aren't absolutely satisfied with their services. My favorite is that they have over 6,000 servers across 110 countries, so I can keep access to local and regional sites without risk of blocks or blackouts. Again, if you want peace of mind while surfing or streaming, claim an exclusive deal and 30-day risk-free trial at nordvpn.com/Lorebrarians so you can relax atop your own virtual Lion Throne. By the time of Paul Atreides, 81 Padishah Emperors have administered the known universe absolutely. House Corrino's golden lion heraldry emblazoned on coinage, hulls, and standards. Their power tangible in the Lion Throne, chiseled from a single slab of Hagall quartz. But imperial sources are frustratingly silent on House Corrino's history. The line of Padishahs is taken as one of the universe's constants. Their rule has lasted lifetimes, and it will continue indefinitely. Why waste energy on its documentation? To this end, Corrino shapes its image to its desires, truth obscured and twisted into fantasy. The original Dune series is quite vague on Corrino's founding days. The only certainties are that the family originates from the planet Salusa Secundus, and a conflict known as the Battle of Corrin unfolded in the year 88 BG. In its aftermath, House Corrino rose to prominence, adopted it as their household name, and shortly consolidated rule of a newly established interstellar empire. Scant information on the Battle of Corrin is found in Dune, outside a few sentences in the terminology of the Imperium, which states that it was a space battle fought near Sigma Draconis in the year 88 BG, settling the ascendancy of the ruling house from Salusa Secundus. To further the mystery, the ancient days of Salusa Secundus, Corrino's current prison planet, are lost. We know it only to be rumored as a wasteland, as terrible and desolate as the dunes of Arrakis. It isn't until the expanded Dune series sheds light on humanity's war against thinking machines and the famous Butlerian Jihad that more details are revealed. Omnius, a self-aware and self-evolving artificial intelligence of the old empire's own making, turns against humanity. It dominates several worlds, controls the synchronized empire of thinking machines, and conflicts with the League of Noble Houses. Salusa Secundus, at that time ruled by the small but wealthy and influential House Butler, acts as a primary meeting point for League members, as well as a haven for refugees fleeing machine attacks. Its environment vastly different in those ancient days. House Butler assumes a more active role in the war against Omnius when Mannion rises to the title of Viceroy for the League of Nobles. But Mannion's achievements are quickly overshadowed by the significance of his daughter, Serena Butler, whose actions and face become the rallying cry for anti-machine sentiment that erupts in the Butlerian Jihad. Humanity pushes back the synchronized empire, and the interminable war concludes in a large-scale battle surrounding Omnius's last bastion on the planet Corrin. The Battle of Corrin results in human victory over thinking machines. House Butler decisive to the war effort and its outcome, adopts the name Corrino. General Phacan Butler, the great-grandson of Mannion, the presiding viceroy of the League of Nobles and the Grand Patriarch of the religious anti-machine sect, uses his political guile and connections to fuse all three roles into the position of Padishah Emperor, establishing himself as first emperor of a new humankind. He delivers these inspiring words: "So that no one will ever forget how we have changed, henceforth I shall no longer be known by the name of Butler. I come from a great and honorable family, but from this day forward, I wish to be known for the Battle of Corin, my crowning achievement that put an end to the thinking machines. Henceforth, let the people call me Corrino, so that all of my descendants will remember that battle and this great day." At a stroke, House Butler is no more. The name Corrino is instantly immortalized, the house inextricable from the empire and humanity itself. In this fashion, culture and society are built atop the bedrock of this noble family. To go against the emperor is to move against all mankind. The war against thinking machines ravaged prior governments and institutions. Phacan Butler filled this void, but instability remained and discontent simmered. Corrino's bold declaration of primacy was a difficult pill to swallow. Pretenders and rivals to the throne were numerous in its earliest days, and imperial shadow factions, such as the progenitors of the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood and the School of Mentats, accumulated their own power. House Corrino's tenuous grip on the empire faltered, and galactic civil war broke out decades after the Battle of Corin, fought between three main groups: House Corrino, the fanatical Butlerians whose religious sentiments still coursed within mankind, and the commercial empire of Venport Holdings. Several years of bloody conflict consumed star systems. The final battles of Lampadas and Denali silenced the pretenders and secured House Corrino's imperial dominance. From it, the Butlerian movement disappeared. Venport was dissolved, and instead the Chome Company and Spacing Guild of Navigators came to control interstellar commerce and travel. The Bene Gesserit entered into imperial politics as power brokers and advisors, and the Mentats offered their services to all imperial households. Corrino's tumultuous first millennium finally settled with the establishment of the Landsraad League. The organizational child of the wartime League of Nobles, the Landsraad acted as a diplomatic and political forum in which representatives of all imperial houses aired grievances, lobbied for imperial largesse, and curried favor with rival factions. A high council whose seats were filled by the influential great houses and overseen by the emperor himself acted as the definitive legal body. With nightmares of the destruction unleashed against worlds held by the synchronized empire by explosive atomic weapons, the Landsraad chartered the Great Convention, which prohibited use of atomics against another human target. To break the Great Convention allowed remaining houses to unleash their combined atomic arsenal against the perpetrating family and annihilate them. Both the Landsraad and the Convention brought stability to Corrino rule, and under their auspices, the imperial system of governance solidified into the Frauverluches, a rigid class distinction forced by the Imperium, whose call is a place for every man and every man in his place. The feudalistic model had at its zenith the Padishah Emperor, who would dole out planetary fiefs to houses great and minor, pledging their fealty in exchange for rights to administer the land and share in its profits. The Frauverluches system was supported by the Combine Honnet Oberadvancer Mercantile, or Chome Company. Chome holdings translated directly to wealth and influence. House Corrino ensured they controlled the majority of the company, but other great houses jockeyed for Chome directorships and relied on profits to line family coffers. Finally, after much strife and uncertainty, the Golden Lion of House Corrino stood invulnerable atop the known universe. Disaster, however, lurked around the corner. Historians are unclear on the circumstances that moved the imperial court from Salusa Secundus to Caitan, But one legend recounts that the traitorous House Tantor circumvented the Great Convention and in the second millennium of imperial rule unleashed its atomic arsenal on the Emperor. The homeworld of House Corrino was nearly obliterated. Atomic disaster turned the surface to slag, and it would never recover its natural vitality. House Tantor was stricken from the histories, and for its criminal use of atomics, the family was massacred. Thus, the world of Catan was established as the new center of imperial power, though Corrino retained its homeworld. Travel was barred and mention was prohibited. Generations transformed Seleucus Secundus to a myth, shrouded in greatest secrecy. It became a prison planet for the empire's worst offenders to suffer cruelty beyond imagining. As centuries give way to millennia, House Corrino falls victim to complacency and corruption. We see Corrino's preoccupation with opulence and leisure in the life of Shaddam I, whose greatest achievement was the mining of opifire on the planet Hegal. Opifire is one of the rarest jewels in the known universe, and Hegal is commonly referred to as the Jewel Planet. Shaddam's materialism leads to complete mining out of Hegal, and the planet, now stripped of its resources, is likely abandoned and forgotten. Such finery embellishes the royal court on Catan. A symbol meant to show power, but on a deeper level suggests greed. Little is revealed of the penultimate House Corrino emperor, Elrud IX, in the original Dune novels, other than the dubious circumstances of his death. Many believe he succumbed to Chalmurki, poison administered through Shaddam's childhood and lifelong friend, Count Hasimir Fenring, though this was never proven. The expanded Dune novels elaborate on Elrud's reign and his obsession with breaking free from the spice monopoly of Arrakis and the constraints placed by the Spacing Guild. He believed as emperor it was his birthright to rule absolutely and to have absolute control of the priceless resource. He conspired with bioengineers of the Bene Tleilax to synthesize artificial spice. Project Amal attempted to subvert the established order and bestow even greater power onto the imperial throne. But the conditions necessary to synthesize spice were unattainable, and Project Amal failed. Shaddam IV, suspicious of all and obsessed with maintaining his family's absolute rule, spent much of his life expanding imperial influence to the consternation of the Landsraad. His fear blinded him to reason, and Shaddam was exploited by the Bene Gesserit sisterhood. They offered their sagacious wisdom and claimed they would ensure his dynasty's continuation, but the agreed terms denied him a male heir to the throne. His Bene Gesserit wives and concubines birthed him only daughters. As his daughter, the Princess Irulan, states in memoir, "I think now he was a man fighting constantly to escape the bars of an invisible cage. You must remember that he was an emperor, fatherhead of a dynasty that reached back into the dimmest history. But we denied him a legal son. Was this not the most terrible defeat a ruler ever suffered?" Shaddam IV will face even greater defeat in his lifetime. More so than title, than Chome holdings, than prestige, imperial authority is maintained by House Corrino's peerless Sardaukar. Like a great bludgeon to beat intractable subjects, the emperor threatens houses great and minor with Sardaukar attack. The terminology of the Imperium relates that Sardaukar are the soldier fanatics of the Padishah Emperor, men from an environmental background of such ferocity that it killed 6 out of 13 persons before the age of 11. They were taught from infancy to use cruelty as a standard weapon, weakening opponents with terror. At the apex of their sway, their swordsmanship was said to match that of the Ginaz 10th level, and their cunning abilities at infighting were reputed to approach those of a Bene Gesserit adept. In an empire where use of atomic arsenals is prohibited, and shielding technology limits the potency of long-range assaults, houses are forced to rely on the close-quarters prowess of foot soldiers to protect interests, and the Sardaukar represent the pinnacle of this type of warfare. Unparalleled in their destruction, any house that stirs imperial ire is hopeless to resist Sardaukar assault. For thousands of years, they have acted as Corrino's strongmen, ensuring stability and enforcing loyalty. Despite their notoriety, the Sardaukar are the Emperor's most guarded secret. All know the legends, but few know where they come from or how they are made. The Imperial prison planet, Seleucia Secundus, is forbidden. Landsraad houses can only guess at what unfolds on the surface, but some presume it to be the training grounds for Sardaukar cadres. Slaves, orphans, criminals are stripped of their freedom and lives and shuttled to Seleucia. They are blank canvases on an unknown world. Here, they are indoctrinated in the Sardaukar way, molded into zealots, blessed with the opportunity to build new lives of glory and honor, and completely subservient to the Padishah Emperor. Duke Leto Atreides investigated Seleucia and the Sardaukar. Dialogue between Leto and his son Paul follows. What if it were more than a prison planet, Paul? There's a question you never hear asked about the Imperial core of Sardaukar. Where do they come from? But every report on Seleucia Secundus says SS is a hell world. Undoubtedly. But if you were going to raise tough, strong, ferocious men, what environmental conditions would you impose on them? Fear is the Sardaukar's greatest weapon. By the time we reach the events of Dune, a great mystique surrounds House Corrino's legions. They are believed indomitable and ruthless, but they've not been fielded on a large scale for years. They're known only in stories, the boogeymen of nightmares. The Mentat Thufir Hawat explains to Baron Harkonnen, the stories you hear about the exploits of the Sardaukar, they're not rumors, are they? Those are first-hand accounts from the limited number of survivors who fought against the Sardaukar, eh? It's this fear that gnaws at the leaders of the Landsraad. No house, regardless of standing, has strength enough to resist open war with the Emperor. It's all they can do amidst the infighting of the Landsraad to maintain tentative treaties between one another and spare themselves the isolation that would quickly bring ruin. As Baron Vladimir Harkonnen reveals in internal dialogue, the thing the great houses fear above all else is the Emperor's Sardaukar loosed upon them, one house at a time. It's this fear that keeps the Padishahs of House Corrino on the Lion Throne for generations. One could argue the decline of House Corrino was inevitable. Millennia of stagnation yielded a feudalism in which aristocrats were fat with excess and corrupt with power. The imperial court kept its delusion alive within the pleasure world of Catan that things would remain as they always had, willfully blinding itself to grumblings for upheaval and revolution. Influence consolidated into the hands of few generates a society founded on abuse, and such imbalance will crumble. But Corrino's fall is hastened by the actions of its last Padishah Emperor, Shaddam IV, whose betrayal of Duke Leto Atreides ultimately leads to the Arrakis Revolt, Shaddam's abdication, and his house's disgrace. Why did the Emperor move against the loyal Atreides? For one, Shaddam feared the Duke. Leto was the strongest voice within the Landsraad Council. His charisma earned him respect and alliances with many other great houses. His influence threatened the Emperor, as did his legions of Caladan soldiers. Not as formidable as Imperial Sardaukar, but first-rate. In essence, the Duke's resources competed with Corrino's, and though Leto remained steadfast in his oath to his liege lord, worry festered within Shaddam's mind. For another, Leto and the Emperor shared blood bonds, and though a distant cousin, the Duke retained a legitimate claim to the throne. As a pretender or successor, Leto was a thorn in Shaddam's side and disrupted continued Corrino rule. Finally, greed clouded the Emperor's mind. With House Atreides destroyed, its spice hoards would be seized, its Chome holdings distributed, and the Lion Throne would emerge with such a windfall that its wealth would outstrip even its nearest rival. In this way, power would be secured. But Shaddam can't openly move against such a renowned and noble house without risking rebellion from the great houses for his audacity. To this end, he orchestrates a grand trap alongside the Atreides' bitter rivals of House Harkonnen, on the planet Arrakis. Leto can't deny governance of the Imperium's most valuable fief. The Padishah Emperor's gift dislodges the Atreides from their fortress of Caladan and onto the vulnerable Arrakeen sands. The Emperor then dispatches legions of Sardaukar under utmost secrecy to bolster a Harkonnen attack. This move is a gross abuse of power, and if word reached the Landsraad, Imperial stability would be undermined. Though he eliminates Leto and House Atreides in the short term, Shaddam's actions lead to his ultimate downfall. We see also in Shaddam's lifetime a degradation in the quality of his military arm. Sardaukar, after millennia of dominance, have come to rest on their laurels. They rely on their superstition to enforce peace rather than their famed warcraft. By the time of Shaddam IV, while they were still formidable, their strength had been sapped by overconfidence, and the sustaining mystique of their warrior religion had been deeply undermined by cynicism. To compound matters further, under Shaddam's rule the Sardaukar were leached of effective leadership, replaced instead by administrators and bureaucrats. As a history of great houses details, his reign is noted chiefly for the Arrakis Revolt, blamed by many historians on Shaddam IV's dalliance with court functions and the pomp of office. The ranks of Bursegs were doubled in the first 16 years of his reign. Appropriations for Sardaukar training went down steadily in the final 30 years before the Arrakis Revolt. The Burseg, positions focused on politics and governance rather than soldiery, swelled while the requisitions for Sardaukar trainees decreased. What we're left with is an arrogant and hollow military propped up by precedent that collapses beneath the overwhelming force of Muad'Dib's Fremen. Such a decline resonates through the halls of our own past empires. As Rome's frontiers expanded to the limits of what was known, its heart was stained by corruption. Generals turned bureaucrats. Personal affairs superseded matters of state. The tradition of Roman invincibility rang hollow, and everywhere, ritual replaced reality. Of course, many reasons commingled to usher its demise, but greed and stagnation is a common thread. More recently, we can see parallels between the Imperium's Sardaukar and the Ottoman Empire's Janissary Corps, a professional military of slave soldiers whose reputation evoked both fear and respect. But as they took on increasingly administrative roles, the Janissary commanders grew complacent and self-centered. They lost their military acumen, and with it, the renown of their legions. The Arrakis Revolt, led by Paul Atreides, exposes House Corrino's weakness. The victorious Atreides strips Shaddam of all power, all titles, and exiles him to his ancestral homeworld of Salusa Secundus. Paul defangs the predatory Sardaukar by stating Salusa will be transformed into a garden world, full of gentle things. Paul takes his wife, Shaddam's daughter, the Princess Irulan, and confiscates Shaddam's Chom holdings as wedding dowry. Irulan will rule in name only and will bear no children. As such, House Corrino's bloodline will end. Such defeat leaves the imperial name disgraced, doomed to die off. An attempt is made during the tumultuous years of Muad'Dib's reign to reinstate House Corrino on the Lion Throne. Irulan plots with agents of the Guild, the Bene Gesserit, and the Bene Tleilax to assassinate Paul. And the exiled Shaddam, unable to stomach his circumstance, continues to prepare his token house guard through military exercises aimed at a planetary invasion. But nothing comes to fruition, for Paul, blessed with the prescience and power of the Kwisatz Haderach, sees possible futures and mitigates threats before they manifest. Another of Shaddam's daughters, Wencetia, attempts to assassinate Paul's children Leto and Ghanima during the regency of Alia Atreides, before the children come of age. She infiltrates Arrakis and releases highly dangerous Laza tigers to maul the twins to death, but both Leto and Ghanima escape. Her son, Farad'n Corrino, is the last noteworthy house member. Grandson to the disgraced Shaddam, Farad'n is married to Ghanima so that the Atreides might retain House Corrino's impressive genetics. He acts as Leto II's court scribe for the remainder of his life, under the title Hark al-Ada. House Corrino, a noble family that extends to the dimmest reach of humanity's memory, had dominated a vast imperium for millennia. Born in adversity, this great house inculcated an aura of invincibility. Through swordpoint diplomacy, it secured for itself the throne. But generations of indulgence opened weaknesses to be exploited, and Corrino could do little to survive the whirling torrent of Paul Muad'Dib Atreides. His mercurial rise precipitated their fall and ultimately the dissolution of this illustrious house. Thanks so much for watching and listening to this video on the history of House Corrino. Let me know your thoughts on House Corrino, the Sardaukar and Shaddam IV's actions, as well as your own insights and suggestions for future videos in the comments below. And if you're a fan of lore and storytelling, be sure to subscribe to the channel, check out the podcast where content is uploaded frequently. I want to take a moment and thank my amazing supporters on Patreon who make all of this possible. I couldn't do it without their fantastic support. If you're interested in becoming a lore luminary for access to me, a great community, written scripts, and early video drops, head to patreon.com/thelorebrarians to learn more. Until next time, go forth and explore the lore.